If you can't have fun, it's not worth it. Are we live?
It is setting up.
Oh, okay, no problem. I just didn't want to miss the cue.
Uh-oh, this video is private. What does that mean?
That was turned off the closed caption. I watched the pre-agenda this morning.
Oh,
YouTube. Prepare has turned off the closed caption.
I like the close. Oh.
That is weird. Okay, it said it's live streaming. So I guess we are live. Madam Mayor, it is 6:03 and we are live.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special City Commission meeting, which is the first budget hearing of City of Lake Worth Beach on Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 6 o'clock. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Betty Rash,
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner Kimberly Stokes,
Here.
Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Stokes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Kimberly Stokes.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, given that this is a budget hearing, this is pretty much the staff show. And I'm going to ask the staff to take over and guide us.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I was asked to do a reordering.
Okay,
I was asked to reorder public hearing C
yeah.
to public hearing A.
Let me ask staff, does that matter to you?
Oh, it doesn't
It's
matter.
okay. I don't, yeah, I don't want to.
Thank you, Melissa. Melissa did ask that on behalf of my request, but we realized that A and B may not take as long as we think. My assumption.
Okay,
So if that's the case, we can stay within order.
so we're not going to reorder.
No, ma'am.
Okay, we're just going to go really fast
Well, I'm not
tonight.
pushing you, but do what
That's
you
my
have to
goal.
do. Of
Okay.
course.
Thank you. I have 3 blue cards. If someone wants to speak, they need to fill out a blue card and put on what the agenda item is that they want to talk about. And just bring up, and here we have one. I got a live one. Thank you. I don't know, it's item C. Is that item C of new business or the resolution? Hi, thank you. Okay. There's no non-agenda. But when we get to, thank you. Give me just 1 second. I'll have to. Yeah, no, it's usually it's not a problem. It's just we have a lot going on here. This would be C, which would be public hearing C, cemetery. Ms. Brown, the cemetery is what you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's what I figured. And C, okay, we got a lot of C's here. Okay. A lot of C's, all right. We do, Peter Vigani, we don't have a non-agenda item slot on this format, but we are going to be talking about what you want to talk about. So do we have public comment as we go through or we don't?
We do, Madam Mayor,
We do, okay. Can you cue me in when that's appropriate?
of course.
Right.
Thank
So,
you.
Madam Mayor, each item is part of the public hearing process.
Right.
So you can, my suggestion after each item, you can see if there are public
Okay.
comments related to that
Okay,
item that we're talking about.
all right, great, thank you, because I don't want it to get lost if he has something to say. Thank you. All right, so. Finance Department,
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Commissioners. For the record, my name is Yannick Inahayo, Interim Finance Director. This first item is to set the tentative millage rate of 5.4945 to fund the city's proposed budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. It's required by the county to have 2 public hearings for it, and then with this being the first one. And I'm glad to say that there are no changes to this millage rate.
Okay.
And that's it.
thank you. So that's it for that one.
That's it for that. one.
Okay, that's easy. So resolution 37-2024
Motion to approve.
I was just doing that right now.
Oh.
Yeah. I wanted to say the name of the resolution.
Yes.
Okay. 37-2023, motion to approve.
Mhm. Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, who was the second? It sounded like two people were speaking at once.
They were.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Malega says it was me. I think it was a tie, but
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor.
What?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do it over again.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So as I said earlier, the tentative rate is 5.945 or $5.49.45 per $1,000 assessed valuation, which is 11.40% more than the rollback rate of 4.9323 mils.
Do I have a motion to approve with that rollback rate?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
Okay, resolution 38-23. First public hearing, adopt the debt service rate and set the second public hearing for September 28th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We don't have to announce anything. I got it.
Do we have anything that's just, it's okay? Madam Law Attorney, we didn't have to do anything else?
No,
Okay,
unless there's public comment.
there was not. Next one, 39. Resolution 39-2023, which is the first public hearing adopting the fiscal year 2023-24 proposed city budget and set the second public hearing for September 28th, 2023. We do have, there's a lot involved in this, and we do have the issue, which I know everybody's here to talk about. We'll work that out. So I'm going to let the staff start it out, and we can address things later.
Thank you. So we're gonna start out with the CIP Capital Improvement Program, which is also on the screen. Just gonna give you an update from the last workshop that we had in regards to that. As far as and identifying what projects were funded. So with starting with the general fund, the first project, the Bristol lining design, this item for 65,000 is still not funded. For the cemetery, for the fencing, for Pinecrest fencing and the IE Banks fencing and the mausoleum. In the previous workshop, we had both fencing. We had proposed using ARPA funds, penny sales tax for those, but we tabled that for a later discussion. I don't know if we have any questions in regards to that.
Mr. McBoy has his light on.
Not for that.
Okay, so let's keep,
Okay.
all right.
And for the next department is the recreation.
Now, are you giving us the unfunded? Is that what we're doing right now?
Right, I'm just going
Okay.
over any updates from our last workshop, basically.
Okay,
Yes. So next time is recreation. No specific changes on this one. We only, for the parks and open spaces for 225, we decided to use 50% of that to use penny sales tax and the other 50% using the TDR funds, the transfer development rights.
But for the public, everything on that list under recreation is fully funded.
Yes. Everything is fully funded. For the street maintenance, everything is fully funded. We just had a slight change for the roadway project. We decided to use ARPA money. We usually allocate $1 million using penny sales tax, but we decided to use ARPA funds and swap it with the pool funds. So part of the unrestricted ARPA funds, we had allocated about approximately $1 million for the pool.
great.
But since we don't really have a time frame as recommended by Commissioner Stokes, I think it would be wise to use penny sales tax. To use ARPA funds for the streets and penny sales tax for the pool. That gives us enough time to come up with the funding and et cetera. we won't be restricted with the time frame. Okay, so that's the only change that we did there. And the sidewalk, that's also funded. We're on page 89.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, one second. Got it. Yeah, what anyway? I know if there's anyone, here we go. Up where you put the tab. Exactly where you tabbed it for me, so I would find it. Thank you.
Hey, they're good.
They are good.
All right, the next project, the next department is the building fund. That's for the customer service building. That's fully funded using building fund balance. Beach fund. Next department is the beach fund. That's all these projects are also funded. And for the Gulf Fund, the projects that are listed on there for approximately 2.2 million, they're still not funded. Okay.
Mhm.
Next department is the Fleet Maintenance Fund. That's also fully funded. Using 1.7 of ARPA funds and $1 million penny sales tax. And would also have a transfer from the building fund for approximately 500,000. Okay, now we go to the enterprise funds. We have the NERC CIP and security camera system for $100. We're going to be using bond money for that. And that's the only project that's funded. The other project that's not funded is the FDOT road street lighting for 220,000. For the
But I have a question.
sure.
I thought when we were going over that, we had another person from the electric company come up and join Mr. Liberty to say that they actually could find the money for that.
Yes, that is correct. So I think staff said they were going to seek other funding that may be available for the street lighting.
So they did not find it between
Well-
that workshop and now.
Oh, no, not between, but we believe in the future we may find some funding for that.
For the next department, the water fund. We had the raw water wells. We tabled that for future workshop we had initially proposed to use the restricted portion of ARPA funds
Yeah.
for the 2.7 million, but we decided to table that for further discussion.
But are we holding the ARPA funds off just in case we decide to do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because this offers until further discussion. And the water treatment plan is still not funded. The modular office space, we're going to be using fund balance for that.
Mhm.
The water distribution mains is still not funded. And the backhoe replacement is funded using pay-go money. Okay. The next department is local sewer. Local sewer, we had initially proposed to use restricted ARPA funds for that, but we decided to table that for further discussion. And next department is stormwater. We have every project on there funded with the exception of the first, the conveyance and the collection improvement. And the sanitation funds that is fully funded, we're going to be using fund balance. And for the regional sewer, we're going to be using pay-go and fund balance as well. So in summary, we had total projects that were requested were 22.7 million. And off of that, we were only able to fund as of today, 11.1 million. And that will conclude the CIP presentation before we move on to the next session.
Okay, so we do. So this will require a vote to after we discuss it. Okay, something should we do? I've been trying to be a little more careful with the procedure. Motion and second, and then we start talking about, okay, do I have a motion?
Are we doing the
Sorry.
budget
Wait.
and the capital?
Well,
Well, this item for the budget, the CIP is included. I just thought you wanted to discuss.
No, we
this
do,
item before we
absolutely,
move on to
yeah,
the next, yes.
Yeah. But we're gonna be voting on it. And
At the end.
for this, because it's kind of a broad thing, let's agree to like discuss it.
I think that.
Okay, all right. I will bend the procedure. So we have a lot of blue cards that, we all have things that we want to talk about. There's things that we want to have added and figure out and that sort of thing. So Mr. McBoy, you had your, light on first. So why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I noticed last week that the budget did not at that time include funding for a full apprentice program for the lineman program in the electric utility. And that was something that we had discussed more times during the year, that we felt that there was importance to that program in terms of ensuring our long-term reliability, that we have build a bench of linemen. I've also done a little communicating, and I'm informed that, and it sort of makes logical sense, that it makes a lot more sense to start all of the lineman apprentices at the same time or as close to the same time as possible. So I don't think it would be wise to wait a year to start, because we have one started. And it tends to make sense to fund them in pairs because they work in pairs. One person goes up pole, one person's on the ground. So there's something to be said for that. I stand ready to be corrected on whether.
No, I don't think you're going to have any argument with that at all, but I think it's in the electric.
Right, that was gonna be part of the next
Right.
presentation. This is.
You mean I've jumped the gun?
That you have.
So
You gave me the opportunity.
Well,
We're in the capital.
yeah, we'll get to you. Now you've already said it. You don't.
I don't have to say it twice.
Great. Ms. Stokes.
all right, so since we're just talking about the capital improvement plan for now, I just wanted to let the public know and everybody understand kind of where we're at with this. We have the ARPA dollars that we committed most of to different projects like we just went over. And then we also have our penny sales tax money, which we don't even have all of that in the bank right now, right? We are still waiting to get money next year and the following year.
Yes.
And I know I expressed a discomfort and continue to express a discomfort with, in one meeting, allocating all of our resources without having a more in-depth conversation about priorities. So I know I was in favor and still am of tabling some of these items so that we can really drill down to the priorities. As we see, we are able to fund $11 million worth of capital improvements. There's $11.6 million worth of capital needs that we need to try to figure out how to prioritize those. And then there are also things that are not on this list, correct? That we would need for capital improvements, other roads, sidewalks. Not every capital need is on this list. So it is I think it is a challenging place for us, and we have to try to look at priorities. And last year we did all the things that staff said were absolute must-haves that were emergency priority projects. And this year we allocated some more, and I look forward to future conversations on how to allocate the remainder of what was not able to be funded this go around with the limited amount of discussions we've had.
Okay. Just so that I make sure that and as we discuss the budget, because it's multi-layered. Like you just said, with $22,000, we want $22 million that of wants and needs.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
have $11 million to spend. Right. I think a lot of us know.
A little
A
more.
little more, 11. I'll say it again.
So we have $22.7 million worth of projects that were presented.
Right.
Only 11.1 million can only be funded
That's,
right now.
that's what I thought I said.
Yes.
Okay. We have about half of what we need.
Correct.
So, I'm uncomfortable with the idea of like postponing things, because we do it with some of the ARPA funds. Those are timeframes that we really, we need to make a decision. I don't know what else you're looking for. And as we go, we all have our items that we feel, the whole, the fact that we tabled and unfund and did not fund the water treatment, the things which I feel are like basic infrastructure, got to have it done. It makes me nervous, because what we hear and what we sort of complain about and reflect on is many years, many decades of delayed maintenance. ending up with streets that are, that we can never, always catching up. So that's just one of my concerns. I'm big on infrastructure. So I don't know how you visualize just putting things off.
Oh, they don't need to be put off indefinitely. We absolutely need to work with our city staff to move things
But
forward.
what's the aim? Though? I'm just not understanding.
The aim is, this is the last amount of money that we have to play with, the last remaining amount.
Right.
And we started with our absolute priorities and have whittled it down. And I think it makes sense from a purely procedural point of view that once you get down to that last bucket of money, that we take an extra workshop or two. It doesn't need to be rushed, and I'm not going to rush it tonight. I'm just not. I think we need to make sure that we've had one more dedicated conversation. We started abroad, we whittled in. Once we spend all that money, it's gone. And I don't see the need to rush it when we have half-hour conversations here, half-hour conversations there, workshops that we have to cover a very wide amount of content in. So I think it's the responsible thing to do. When we tabled something, we did not take it off and then spend it elsewhere. We didn't say, I'm gonna table this, or I'm gonna remove it from this item and go spend it on that item.
Well, that's what I just asked him. The money is set aside.
It's set aside. We haven't taken the money and moved it to a new project. We've tabled a little bit of our ARPA money relative to the amount we were given and a little bit of our sales tax money to have a real conversation about that last remainder of the pot. And it can happen as quickly as we want it to happen, making sure that staff has the time to do their preparation for it.
And I guess I thought that was one of the things that we would do tonight is discuss what possibilities we have. And, we all have I have a couple of things that I'm interested in. I know that everybody has their own things that they're interested in. So when I'm going to call on a couple other people, thank you. Appreciate that. And see, but we'll get back to that concept of another workshop, but let's see what everybody else is saying.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have any of my own personal wish list. I just know what the community's been advocating for. I always believe in being fiscally responsible to our city and our residents. We have not, this isn't just something that we're doing willy-nilly. We've had many workshops. There's data that the city manager has forwarded to me. This has been 2.5 years of discussions. Staff has already done their research, or else they wouldn't be coming to us in regards to what needs to be done. And as far as I'm concerned, the longer we prolong this, the less time we're giving staff to fulfill the obligations that we have to this money. There are permits that need to be pulled. There are surveys that need to be done. This isn't just give a stamp of approval and move forward. So again, we were elected to be leaders and to make decisions. Staff has come with recommendations, and I believe that we don't need to have another workshop or another discussion in regards to ARPA funds or any other funds. We've, since day one of most of us being in office, we've had access to the penny sales tax, and we know we're relatively where we stand. We have a great finance department. We've got amazing directors. And this CIP, if you look at the last 5 years of CIP, it really hasn't changed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a couple of things added as far as the water department has gone. But a lot of these items, if you look back over the years and you dust off the things that were left behind from the previous commission, this is not new stuff. The only thing that's new is now we have some of the resources to bring it to fruition. And now it's going to cost us more because it wasn't done 5 or 7 or 10 years ago. And while I hear Commissioner Stokes' concerns and being fiscally responsible, there's nothing in this pot of money that I think is being spent frivolously
Right.
or without concern and directive from the staff, from the residents and the business owners. I personally would like to, I don't feel comfortable leaving $11 million of need on the table for CIP for another conversation to be had months from now. And I don't think that that's where we're at. We have other studies that we're going to start focusing on, like the mobility study, the housing studies coming back to us. I mean, we have other things that we need to get to. And I think if the residents and who are listening want to know that we're making good decisions, what are you doing with our money? Here's the plan for the next 12 months. We can know that we've done the best that we've done as far as the research and trusting our staff and seeing the needs. You know, we're not doing things that are just glitter balls. This is infrastructure that needs to be done. Just like the water tower wasn't about just repainting the water tower. You know, this is more important. And I'm comfortable with having a more in-depth conversation tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Diaz.
I guess I take a different but similar perspective to that. And I think being responsible is having a conversation. It's not necessarily a dig on a staff on whether or not these projects are needed. We clearly know that they're needed. I think the conversation is more in line of potentially there's other sources of money for this, you know, specifically like the water projects. I wouldn't want to postpone certain parts of those water projects. And I know Sam is here if he wants to answer questions, but you know, we have right now, unlike other municipalities, we have a friendly relationship with DEP and we probably really intend on maintaining that. So I think the conversation of funding some of these projects like the monitoring well, for example, you know, that's an ongoing conversation. There are potentially other avenues of funding that might be not including not using our money. And we should continue to have that conversation, but also we need to do it in a careful way to make sure that the work continues, right? The design needs to happen. All these considerations need to happen. And I think there's a way that we can use maybe, you know, whatever the 8% or whatever the percentage is to keep the work going as we ask and look for other sources. And you know, the soft set aside of, you know, the money is set aside to use that if needed, but I think we should always do ourselves a service to perpetually continue to look for other sources. I mean, quite frankly, you know, we didn't have that many legislative asks last session, and we should be throwing every ask we have and seeing how it works. And you know, you might say no. Likely we'll say no to a lot of it, but nobody's won the lottery without buying a ticket. So we kind of have to work that in, and that conversation is ongoing and continues as the process is happening. And we can't just like delay, you know, design and whatnot. We still got to make the steps.
Right. And I believe all of us are, one of the things that when we went up to the Florida League of Cities Conference, you know, starting not in February when we go to Tallahassee, but, you know, developing those relationships now. And I think you've been doing that. And I know that I'm doing a little bit of that as well. I'm sure everybody, other people are as well. And I have a question. When I see, you know, the local sewer, I'm specifically asking about the local sewer fund, the 1.715, is that, it's tabled, is the money set aside?
Uh,
I mean, we have the money for it.
No, initially we had
We just,
proposed to use our restricted ARPA funds,
right,
but we decided to table the project. So the ARPA funds are still available, but the money.
but it would
for
be
the
taking
whole-
it away from another project.
No.
No.
No,
This is
so it is still
yes,
available. Okay.
It's still available.
Okay.
ARPA funds, we have about $3.7 million of restricted
Okay.
funds that are still set aside
Yeah,
until further
because,
discussion with the.
Mr. McBoy?
Thank you. It certainly is an important question of what is the best form of good government? What is the best way to do things? I would think that it is reasonable to make a separation between our regular budget items that relate to our inflows of money that come from property taxes and all sorts of different sources, and our expenses that we typically have, to separate that discussion somewhat from one-shot sources of money, ARPA and the penny sales tax, which are in a very different category. They come once at a time. And very much part of what our job is, as I see it, is to represent the community and try to prioritize in the face of always much bigger needs, almost all of which are very important, very valid, but are usually financially bigger than what we have available. And somebody has to make the unpleasant, difficult decisions of, do we spend this need that's really important, or do we spend that need that's really important? I would suggest that we do separate out and have for a separate discussion, not in the heat of, hey, today we have to prove the budget. We're really here to just approve the stuff that we've already all have pretty much worked on and agreed on. To help with that, could you, our finance director, remind us of what are the deadlines for the penny sales tax and what are the deadlines for ARPA as far as committing the funds and spending the funds? Any deadlines so that we have in mind? Because sometimes Well, just go ahead. and put
Yes,
that.
so for ARPA funds, the deadlines to commit the funds is December 2024.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're,
Tomorrow, essentially tomorrow.
A year from.
The way
a
this
few
works.
months from
Right.
now.
no,
And
that's for
then
committing the. funds.
committing the funds, meaning
So
yes.
it's not tomorrow,
But
it's
they-
a year.
A year,
15
like,
months away.
it's,
Okay,
And to
and-
spend the funds is 2 years after that, so that will be December
Right.
2026.
so, we shouldn't be asleep at the wheel, but we also don't need to do anything tomorrow. So if we had a discussion about ARPA funds in a month or in 2 months,
That's fine,
we would be fine.
yes.
We'd be fine. And the penny sales tax doesn't really have any deadlines built into it.
Doesn't have any real deadlines, not that I know of at this very moment, but I know for certain that we're going to be having revenues are going to be coming in until beginning of fiscal year 26,
Right.
February
And we oughta
2026, right?
Do something with it before it quits.
Right. But I think we
But-
can still spend the money as long as it's allocated for project, yes. But
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. So that would be my statement is that let's separate some of the things. Another thing that I think is important for the public and all of us to be aware is that it is not altogether a major problem that there is more on the wish list than we have money for. Some of that is quite intentional, that we signal to other agencies that we are interested in doing something
Yes.
by putting it on CIP,
Absolutely.
knowing full well that we don't have the money for it, but
Yes.
we have to let federal agencies, state agencies know that this is a priority, and we do that by putting it on that list.
Yes,
So, yes, it doesn't look exciting that we have $22 million worth of things we'd like to do, and we're only at about 11 to do it. But again, as several of my colleagues have pointed out, we want to be looking for every possible source. If we can get it funded federally or state or revolving funds or whatever, that's in the interest of our community. So we're looking at that.
thank you. And, looking for the other sources is also a time consuming thing. So, when I look at things we've tabled or things that are unfunded, we tabled the street lighting for Lake Worth Road. I don't see that as a life and death thing, but I do see water projects. I do see sewer projects. I do see things like the local sewer pumps, again, not sexy, but the local sewer pump station improvements, the local sewer pipe network. Things that are life and death, that if you flush your toilet and there's no place for it to go, you're going to be calling City Hall. So I am uncomfortable with us sort of, and maybe I'm interpreting it incorrectly, but like we're second guessing the people that we hire to do what we need to do. I know nothing about sewers. I know nothing about water, but we have people that do. And they are telling us these are important projects. We have the money. Why would we second guess what these people who know what we need are asking for? Mr. McBoy.
I think it's unfortunate to frame it in terms of second guessing. There is a difference between the responsibilities of the elected officials who represent the community and the employed staff who bring technical expertise. No question that they do. And I would guess that all of us would be quick to agree that there are many, many things that our technical staff knows more about than any of us or all of us put together. However, our responsibility as elected officials is to help make those difficult decisions. Is the sewer more important than the stormwater? Is the stormwater more important than the electrical this or that? Those are decisions that do not necessarily have a single right technical answer. They're decisions that somebody, unfortunately it's us, has to make those decisions. We are working on angles to pursue some of the other things. I would also remind us that yes, many of these issues are things that are very important technically. However, if COVID had not come along and ARPA funds had not been there, we would be figuring out some other way to deal with these problems.
No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't have the money. This is a gift from
We
the,
would be figuring
above.
out some way of dealing with the problems of the sewer, the water, the electric. It might
Please
be that
don't.
some things wouldn't happen. So we should not be necessarily thinking of it, there's a concern It's when you use your savings to do things that are operating expenses, that's always something that you do very cautiously. And sometimes you got to do it, but you do it cautiously. And I think all that's being asked for is, let's make sure we've pursued all the alternative angles for other sources of funding. Let's have a separate discussion and not do it on the last day of the budget approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Malega.
Thank you. I would like to hear from the public. You said you had a bunch of comments, but in addition, even though we set aside and say, okay, we're gonna say the 1.7 million that the sewer fund needs, let's fund it right now with ARPA, doesn't mean that staff's not gonna go out and continue to get grants. They can come back to us and say, we need to do a great budget amendment. We've got this grant for $500,000, put that back into the ARPA funds. This is, in my
That's
opinion.
possible. Is that not, Mr.?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, because
That's very
we don't have to give the final report for a year and a half, but this at least allows staff to know.
Yeah, go
And in
on.
addition, we're talking about going out to those agencies. Agencies pay attention to the money that we're putting behind our own projects. So if we can say, you know what, yes, and I hear everyone's concerns, but I would like us to just think of the bigger picture. I can't go to the bank for a loan and ask the bank to fund 120% of a project if I'm not putting skin in the game.
Right.
So at least if we're putting aside and saying, you know, we're going to say that, yes, we will use ARPA money if we cannot get grants or funding from other resources. So I would like to hear from the public, but I don't think that us putting that money aside doesn't mean that we're not going to go after the money from other agencies.
Thank you, Commissioner Stokes.
I just have two things. One is I'm not going to be in favor of allocating money tonight to projects that we've already discussed in previous workshops. And we can always come back in a month from now and do a budget amendment to allocate it after we've done our due diligence, which you can feel comfortable that you've done with your staff. I do not feel comfortable, and that's my perspective. We elect 5 people so that we bring multiple perspectives. We're all going to bring a different point of view. I am worried that this item is covering capital as well as our operating budget at the same time, and we've eaten into most of our 30 minutes that we're allowed to talk. So I don't think we have a lot of time to discuss more on this issue. And I want time. That is me as a person, as an elected official. It's what I need and how I operate.
We have public comments. Yeah. Come on.
So are we waiting to finish this
We're going to
item
have public hearings.
in the middle of the item?
Thank you. Okay. All right, let's start with, thank you. Ramsey McLeod. I'll thank you. You're all being so helpful tonight. Okay, Ramsey, and then up is Bo Allen after that, and then Aaron Allen, the Allen family will be after Ramsey. Really? Careful. Ramsey McLeod.
Hello? Okay, I'm ready.
Thank you.
Technical
Begin.
difficulties. Ramsey McLeod, 24 South C Street. 2 items I really want to address. One, I do want to see funding committed. And yes, I think it's astutely important for you all to commit the money, the ARPA funds, and then go find the money from grants and elsewhere, that there's resources that could potentially fund these things. But the city residents have gone years, almost decades, with CIP projects that haven't been addressed and haven't been budgeted for. And we're tired of it. Our cemetery is being used as overflow parking on South A Street. They're running through there on motorbikes. We have veterans in that cemetery. And I don't really care how you feel, Ms. Stokes, and how much time you need to figure things out. But
Please don't be personal.
we owe respect to our deceased members that are in cemeteries, and those grounds should be protected. And we should be looking at least giving $1 million for the water pump, at least to get the design process started. It could be 6 months before they can even get a design put together. And if they get the money, fine. But if they don't, at least they can start on these projects that are important for all the residents. because we'll benefit from it. And we're tired of living in a situation where all of you up there on the dais keep finding a way to kick the can down the road. Oh, we'll get to it later. We'll get to it later. And something else pops up and then we don't have our infrastructure taken care of. And this is money that's being given to us. We need to capitalize on it and catch up with so many infrastructure projects that haven't been budgeted for. And that can be taken care of and resolved with this money expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you. Bo Allen, Aaron Allen, and then Dolores Brown. And after Miss Brown. After Miss Brown. Miss Lowe.
Better not move that up. It'll be too high for everybody else. Bo Allen, 208 South Lakeside. I think that the commission should be listening to Commissioner Malega. And what she says makes sense. And I think I looked at everybody's heads in the room nodding up and down. If Commissioner Stokes needs 30 more days to do her due diligence, I would wonder why she hasn't already done her due diligence. I was a commissioner and we got all these items. You took your time to read about them before you come into a meeting like this. To come in and try to stall something of this importance for 30 days, it shows that she's not prepared for the job. It shows she doesn't do her homework. And it's probably a great little blip for somebody who's running against her. Well, it's ridiculous to come in here and try to put something off like this for 30 days. You guys have a job to do. You're right. You were elected. And your job is to make decisions, not to milly-mally around and kick the can down the road. Now, for crying out loud, pull up your pants and make a decision and lead our city like you claim you do.
Aaron Allen.
Erin Allen, 208 South Lakeside Drive. I'm here to express my support for the funding of the Osborne Cemetery improvements that have been proposed by Commissioner Malega. There are many pioneer families who were laid to rest in this cemetery. And I think that if we can find $350,000 to fund conceptual drawings for a pool that may or may not ever materialize, that we should be able to find the funds for these improvements that will last for generations.
Miss Brown, and then Miss Lowe, and then Miss Fisher, and then Miss Bloxon, and then Miss Robert.
Dolores Brown, Lake Worth. I'm here to speak on behalf of the cemeteries and for both of them. We've had some different workshops to talk about different things about the cemeteries. And we talked about fencing and different things like that for the cemeteries. While, when you make your decisions, I think about that. I have 13 loved ones, not distant cousins, but both my parents, brother, uncles, just like some of the other people in here have. So when you make your decisions, think about the places that your loved ones have been laid to rest. Think about that when you make your decisions concerning the funding, concerning the projects, and anything else regarding the cemeteries. And even with the fencing, the chain link, I think it's chain link fencing. It's not okay. Good. To involve once with the whatever you decide to purchase or what have you with the funding, to get some input from the community regarding the look of the cemetery, because again, they're our loved ones that are laid to rest there, and we're the ones that are concerned about that. We have people that, again, I say she said something about the veterans are there, and that's fine. The veterans are there, but again, all of us have loved ones that are there. We're very concerned about it. We talked about this. I know we had workshops at the Lake Osborne Center. We talked about the historical part of it and all of that. And right now it's really like the monument for us that's within that community. We want to keep it up, but we do want funding. We do want to have input on whatever it is that you do for the cemetery. Again, to respect the veterans, our loved ones, and those that are to come there. And also, it was a new thing I saw about the mausoleum at the Pinecrest Cemetery. That was my first time hearing that they were going to put a mausoleum at the Pinecrest Cemetery. So
Thank you. That's time.
well, that's my time. Okay, thank
And
you.
there are no plans to do that. It's aspirational, just FYI. Ms. Lowe. Followed by Ms. Fisher. Good evening, Ms.
Good
Lowe.
evening. Rita Lowe, Lake Worth. Maybe I misunderstood. You said that the cemetery, the fencing was unfunded?
Right.
Did I hear right?
Yes,
Okay.
a lot of unfunded projects.
Well, I know there is a lot of unfunded projects, but I don't want to reiterate some of the issues that Mr. Allen spoke about because I don't have the time. In 2 or 3 minutes, it won't give me the time. But we have been advocating for a fence for over 5 years. Commissioner Malega has been coming to every meeting with us in our community. And it just surprises me, and I don't come up here that much. It surprises me that every time we don't come up here, the South End District 1, we don't come up here begging and crying for anything. But we have community meetings and we have advocated with her and with our community for that fence. We have heard that we have the funds. It's there, but some of you said, well, put it on the back burner again. Well, that's what you've been doing since I've been in Lake Worth, 50 years. And since I've been here, District 1 and the Osborne community have been put on the back burner. Now, we don't want to be put on the back burner. So go back in your 30 days or whatever and put it back and fund it. We want not a chain link fence. We want a beautification fence at IA Banks and 8th Street.
Thank you. Peggy Fisher. After that, Carla Blockson, and then Deborah Robert.
Peggy Fisher, 8th Street, Lake Worth Beach. Last meeting, there were a lot of comments about values. Well, my values that I were brought up with was to respect my elders and veterans. And I think the city should be doing that for both those cemeteries. It's a little bit of money, put fences around them and secure them. And that's what you should be doing. But let's go to this, pass it on down the road bit. You all had a meeting on August 22nd, 23 days ago. And at that meeting, you went over the CIP. And the water fund came up. Oh, we're not going to talk about that. It's a comment from 2 commissioners sitting up there, District 2 and District 3. There were other sections where it was, we're not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. You've had 23 days. If you can't figure it out in the time that's all started, that was a 5th budget meeting, you're not doing your jobs. And you need to get off your whatevers and your high horses and do your job and represent the people in this city and fund the projects that are important and life impacting for the people in this city. I'm tired of hearing about, I don't want to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. At your pre-agenda meeting, District 4 Commissioner commented about how important it was to get the monitoring well. But you didn't talk about it on August 22nd because you didn't want to, because you all, or 3 of you, decided you knew more than the water utility director who was standing here and who was told to move on along. You're not doing your jobs for this city, for the people in this city. And you keep doing this over and over and over, or you come up with your own proposals about how to reallocate money for projects that you advocate for that are in your values. I've yet to see the statement of values that you so valiantly advocated for. Our values, our values. Well, write them all down and publish them on the website. When you do
Thank you, that's time.
media.
Thank you. Next up is Ms. Blockson. And after that, Ms. Robert. Good evening, Ms. Blockson.
Good evening, Carla Blockson, 1802 Pierce Drive. First of all, I want to congratulate Commissioner Malega on getting the Gold Award from the League of Cities. That is very important, and it's a star in Lake Worth's cap. Please don't take that time from my minutes, my 2 minutes.
I paused, Ms. Blockson, you're fine.
Yeah. Eye Banks and Pinecrest Cemetery are where a multitude of city residents are buried. These are Lake Worth Beach cemeteries. They are owned by the city of Lake Worth Beach. They're not owned by District 1. District 1 does not have any other priority other than them than any of you, or even I. We all know people who are buried there, and our loved ones are crying out to us saying, is this how we deserve to be treated? There are people defecating on the cemetery grounds. There's parties there. People are getting high. We see it because we're there. If you don't take the time to go to that neighborhood, spend time in that neighborhood, don't tell me you know what's best for them, because you don't. The Osborne community, when we look, oh wait, I want to make a point about the ARPA funds. ARPA funds were awarded in 2021. You have had years to make a decision and have a workshop and have a discussion. If you need to have more time to have a discussion, something is wrong. Other cities who receive their ARPA funds, over half of them have spent them. We are one of the few cities who have done very little with ours. And if you haven't spent the money, you may not lose it, but money loses value when you hold it. You know, if you keep holding that dime, after a while, it's only worth a nickel. That's basic economics. So you need to look at, if we keep putting these projects off, what are we going to get in the end? And for all of you who are not sure as to what we should do, let's talk about District 1, since you think this is their problem. Historically, District 1 has had less money, less tax dollars, less influence than any other district in this city. I did the research. I know what I'm saying. When it came time to spend money on District 1, you did the same thing that you did this year by allotting CDBG money in the Recreation Department of the budget for District 1 instead of giving them any of the ARPA funds that you gave to the other districts. So when you look at your budget, yes, I looked at it today. So the only
I'm
thing.
sorry, that's time.
Well done. Thank you very much. Good evening, Ms. Robert.
Good evening. Deborah Robert, 127 South K Street. I only wish I could continue what Carla Boxon didn't get to finish, at least a paragraph of it to wrap up. But I'm here just a little bit of a different spin right now. I was thinking about the Day of the Dead recently, Dia de los Muertos. I'm trying to learn to speak better. It's soon upon us, and it honors those that have passed, those that have passed, and it celebrates their lives as ones who still are very much a part of our life. And we're all looking forward to this. And I'm working with the Hatch right now, and the CRA. I was just talking to them over the past couple of days to incorporate more countywide fine art that is relevant to this incredible event. We're trying to really bring it up more and more and more, because I think it could get even countywide, almost statewide recognition. So thousands will be in our city to honor this special holiday, creating altars for all to see, an art exhibition, ultimately one of the most wonderful celebrations our city is known for. So now I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask the commission to keep this spirit of reverence and respect you will all show in the days ahead intact as you review the capital improvement line items before you. Because I'm speaking of the Eye Banks and the Pinecrest cemeteries, as we are about to honor and protect the memories of those lost through our Day of the Dead cultural celebration. So must we honor and protect those sacred grounds which hold the dead of the ones who came before us all of our cultures and heritage combined and made the city possible. And some of the people that are celebrating Day of the Dead, I'm sure they have relatives that are buried there too. So we're speaking about them also. We're trying to do this as a community here. So I recognize that you and the commission speak about doing the right thing, doing things that you feel are in line with our values, even at tremendous, tremendous cost. Well, we, the people, feel that a fence protecting and honoring our cemeteries is in line with those values. Nothing less. A chain is not what we're going to do. Just as we, the people you serve, were united and vocal in not dividing up the voting of District 1, the same entire community here, and I'm pretty confident in this, is united again, and we want proper fences surrounding our memorial grounds. Let's just come together on this, do what we all know is right, and what is good and what is decent. And I'm going to thank you for your service in advance.
Thank you. That is the end. Madam Clerk, do you have any public comment?
Yes, I have 5 comments, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
The first is from Irene Katz, 418 North Federal Highway, Unit 28. I'm writing to express my concerns over apparent financial mismanagement. My understanding is that there was a $2.5 million in untracked spending last year. How could this happen? It is alarming that this year's increase in tax revenue was used to cover previously unaccounted expenses. I expect there has been accountability for the oversight in financial management and systems. Policies and procedures are now in place to prevent future discrepancies. Anthony Gallegos, 425 North D Street. The 2.5 million in unaccounted expenses is alarming. Better care needs to be taken so that residents know how our money is being spent and that there is a proper account of all budgetary expenses. $2.5 million is a significant amount of money for our city, and an oversight that large shouldn't be ignored or forgotten without recognition of its seriousness and earnest steps taken to prevent it from happening again. Will the city provide a thorough explanation for the $2.5 million oversight to maintain trust, accountability, and transparency between itself and residents? What can the city do to make sure that expenses are properly accounted for going forward? Sacha Orenstein, 110 South Gulfview Road. I'm concerned about the news that over the past year, there was $2.5 million in untracked spending. I find the gap in accountability troubling, to say the least. It raises questions about financial management and oversight. Our property taxes are increasing, yet the city is cutting positions and talking about budget shortfalls. I'm confused on how this could happen and would like some answers. Suki Jajong, 2381 Sunset Avenue, apartment 110. I have been advised that over the past year, there was $2.5 million in untracked spending. If so, this is very disturbing. Why isn't staff and the city manager keeping our city accounts balanced? Such an oversight raises immediate questions, not only about the financial systems in place, but also about accountability. It seems to me that this suggests the need for a comprehensive review of our financial processes and increased scrutiny on spending and how this happened and who is responsible. It's crucial that residents have a clear understanding of how their tax dollars are managed, allocated, and spent. The last comment is from Greg Richter, 1202 South Palmway. In looking at the budget documents, I'm writing in support of the fence and gates for our 2 cemeteries, additional improvements as requested. I would like to elaborate more on the subject, but I only have 3 minutes to get this in for tonight's meeting. Thanks. Those are only public comments I have, Madam Mayor.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, we've heard a lot of public comment. Well, as I sit here, I'm thinking, I agree that the fences are a wonderful thing to have around the cemeteries. What I find a little disturbing is that we're sitting here in 2023 and no prior commissions have addressed this, that somehow it's now our burden to be this bad, either the good people that do the fence or the bad people that say no, when quite a few years have gone by that it was not done. So it's a little unfair for us, but I learned something at the Florida League of Cities. It's not our fault, but it is our problem. So that's, so I don't know where we go from there. I mean,
Madam Mayor, in regards to the fence, let me just say that my predecessor, unfortunately, and I don't speak ill of anybody, had made the false promise in 2017 at a community meeting that the funding was there for the fence.
Really?
So when I ran in 18, he said he was going to fulfill that promise. Fast forward, that wasn't fulfilled. So this is something that has been promised years after years after years to a community that now I feel my job is to fight for what the community wants. And I was in the room when my predecessor made this promise multiple times. And the funding was never there because every budget meeting, it was Mr. Brown standing forward going, we're here again asking for the funds, and it was always cut off of the budget. So I hear what you're saying. It's not our fault, but it is our problem, just like a lot of things in the CIP. I also want to just say that I hear the concerns and I see, I mean, I don't feel comfortable not taking care of simple things like the Lake Worth street lights of 220 and the sewer and the water. I would like to make a motion to approve with the addition of 3.520 coming from ARPA to fund both the cemetery fences, the FDOT Lake Worth Road street lighting, the water distribution mains underwater fund, the local sewer fund of 1.165 for the system pipe network. And under stormwater, 545,000 for the only thing they had unfunded. I feel this way, it's helping there's a lot of departments getting benefit from this motion. In addition, I would also like to ask staff that just because we're possibly going to approve this, doesn't mean that we don't go out and try to find the funding somewhere else. Just like I'm gonna have an ask for the cemeteries. You know, last year there was a lot of legislation that was passed thanks to Senator Bobby Powell on African-American cemeteries. But having this money set aside is also a match for us when we go out for grants. So that's my motion for approval of this with the additional 3.520 coming from ARPA funds to fund those projects that need to be done.
Do I have a second? I'm gonna pass the gavel. I don't want to second it. And I have a question for the finance director. If this were to pass, is there enough money in whether it's ARPA or sales tax or pretty much those two to fund you said the water, as well as the cemetery fences?
Yes, so we have funds available in penny sales tax. That was the original proposal, to use penny sales tax for the fences. And for the water and local sewer, we had recommended using the restricted ARPA funds.
Because my feeling about, I agree with everything that everyone has said, and especially the Banks Cemetery, because the Osborne community, the history of this city and the Osborne community, that community was set aside very clearly as what they were in the bad days. It was platted as the colored edition, which I was able, when I was city attorney, thanks to the commission, allowed me, it used to read it was platted as the Osborne colored edition. And now it's the Osborne edition, formerly known as the Osborne colored edition. So that's the kind of thing. I mean, if this group of people, if this community has been singled out in a negative way in the past, and I'm going back before I was long time ago, the history, we all know the history. Then let's honor them and honor that group. And one of the things when I went down when the wall painting was going on in the conversations, one of the things that impressed me, and you spend more time there than I do, but one of the things that just blew me away was the citizens talking, well, my mother owned the laundromat, but your father owned the grocery store. It was like, this is a family, this is a community, and this is something that we should honor. So if we have the money, my feeling would be to go ahead. So we have a motion and a second, now we can have more discussion. Who's first? Mr. McCoy?
I think so, but I'm not sure. Defer to others. I'm uncomfortable with framing things as we have to do X to honor our previous loved departed ones. I'm uncomfortable with discussions that say, this is the will of the people, this is the will of the community. I have heard from people who made it very clear to me, who have people in the A Street Cemetery, the Pinecrest Cemetery, multiple people, that they do not feel comfortable with the fence there. Excuse me, Madam Mayor, can you make sure that we keep order?
Folks, really, I beg you. Don't make me use the gavel. I have never used it, so let's keep going.
I'm not comfortable with that phrasing. The concerns of what status each of the different cemeteries is, what activities are going on, those are very valid concerns. a discussion of what is the best way to reduce unfortunate behavior that might be happening. First, we need to get a good assessment of what is in fact happening. We had may I speak without being interrupted, please?
All right, let's.
May I
let him-
speak
let- yeah,
without being interrupted,
It's
please?
okay, Mr. McBoyd, she won't do it again.
Thank you. We've had previous discussions of fencing in another part of the city, and assertions were made about activities that were going on. I checked with PBSO and was in writing assured that some of those assertions were in fact not true. I asked the question of, does PBSO need fencing to enforce and maintain certain level of activities or not activities in those, and they indicated they did not. We have not had that same discussion with the Pinecrest Cemetery or with the Banks Point. So the issue of showing respect for those who passed on is a very reasonable one. The question of what is the most reasonable way to spend $500,000 that we do not have in the way of extra, and when we have a wide range of things that need to be done, and the discussion of, which I would think would want to involve PBSO, is, hey, we're proposing X type of fence. Not everybody in the community thinks that that's a good look for a cemetery. Some people think it is, some people don't. The question should be asked and a written answer achieved from PBSO. If you're concerned about XYZ activities, is that in fact going to stop that? What do you get for the $500,000? Are there alternate ways to achieve? Do we simply need perhaps a little bit more enforcement at 11 o'clock at night? Do we need somebody coming by? Those are questions that I'm not in a position to answer, but PBSO probably could give us some pretty good answers. And they may say, look, a fence doesn't help any. In fact, the fence makes it worse because I can't see in there.
A fence is to secure the cemetery. No, Mayor, with all respect, every time somebody comes up with District 1, you're telling me, and I'm gonna stand up for my people, okay? You're still. Stop,
No,
stop.
no,
You guys, wait a minute. I'm trying to do my press.
Interruptions. I bet you would, and you did.
And you've gone on for 15 minutes.
Are you done? You've been talking for quite a while. This is going to become a workshop if we don't stop.
Now, I drive through Pinecrest.
Commissioner
at
Diaz
10
has
o'clock
light
at-
on.
At 10 o'clock at night, and I see people doing things.
No, I did not say that. I was.
You've got another minute.
Asked you to stop.
There has to be a
Can we
limit.
have a point of order, please?
Yeah, there has to be a limit in how much we speak. You've been speaking for quite some time. Please don't interrupt, really don't interrupt, but enough is enough. How much more do you need to say?
And I do believe that it says the person who is affected for the district in our meetings is the one who gets the first bite of the apple, but you've had now 2 or 3.
This
All
is
right,
the
so go
budget for the whole city that we're voting on right now.
All right, so Mr., why don't you finish what you were going to say?
I do not think it is a wise move at this point to spend $500,000 for something that does not necessarily have full approval in the community, that does not necessarily achieve particular objectives, that has not been vetted with PBSO. Will it achieve those objectives? Are there alternate ways that might be more widely acceptable that might achieve those objectives, whatever they are? So
Thank you.
I would not vote in support of that at this point.
You've made that clear. I want to make a comment though about this. I'm just going to take a second. This is about more than safety. When I drive on A Street and it's just, there's no separation between the street and the graveyard, or when you go down to the banks, it's not just how many, are there not enough crimes? It's a question of setting aside, and again, we're, not our fault, but we're going to deal with it. Showing respect just by setting it aside as sacred ground. It hasn't been done before. I'm sorry that it hasn't been done before. I wish somebody would have done it in 1950, but they didn't. So here we are. And it's not just about safety, and it's not just about that. It's about, this is a cemetery, we're showing it respect. Rarely do you see a cemetery that doesn't have some kind, whether it's a wide lawn or something, who doesn't have something. So I will, if we have the money, I would vote in favor of doing that. Mr. Diaz?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I just want to let you know that you're past the 30 minutes.
You know, Mr. McBoy, I respect you, but you take up way too much time in these conversations because now we're at 30 minutes. And I am, if that means that we are being forced by this talk, we're being forced to have a workshop, that's a pretty backhanded way to do
We're
it.
not forced to have a workshop.
Well, you are now 30 minutes.
I object to that accusation, Madam Mayor.
Can we hear from the city attorney, please?
What? What do you want to hear from the city attorney?
I believe we can still vote and make motions and vote. It could be probably vote to extend this conversation. That is a rule. We're not being forced.
Right now, there's a motion and a second. on-
So can we hear what our options are?
Madam Mayor, if I may respond to the question,
Please do.
under your rules of procedure, the commission can take a vote to suspend the rule on the 30-minute time frame and vote to extend that.
Can we make it a time certain?
However you phrase the
Another
motion.
10 minutes, I mean, really,
I have a motion to suspend the rule for this topic and
But-
extend 10 minutes.
or for the thing. 10 minutes. And I think, Mr. McBoy, with all due respect, you had your say. There's other people that want to talk. So second, all in favor of extending it 10 minutes? Say aye. Okay, fine. Thank you. Mr. Diaz, I believe your light
I'm
was,
sorry, who was the second?
Mr. McBoy.
Thank you.
Mr. Diaz, did you have your light on?
I did, yeah. You know, it's really unfortunate that this is being painted in a particular light because really what it comes down to, I really appreciate what, you know, you said a little while ago, Mayor, about how this is a situation that isn't great. And what it comes down to is we have X amount of dollars and Y amount of projects that we need to fund. And a lot of these things that are on the table have been promised for years and years. So that's certainly very unfortunate. But the reality is we have quite a number of things on the table, and some of which, you know, some of us didn't add to the table because we know the current financial situation that we're in and what we were left with. You know, we unfortunately have to prioritize things, and, you know, scrutinizing, having a conversation, there's certainly not, you know, it's certainly not an unfounded thing or a problem, because it's really what we should be doing right up to the nth hour. And, you know, I often think about the comment of standing up for our communities and who we represent. And, you know, I can make that claim too. We have a number of houses in South Palm that are at extreme risk of being lost completely to flooding because of lack of stormwater management. Well, not quite, because there's other things as well, like South Palm Park, which has very similar security problems of people walking onto people with seawalls and whatnot. And, you know, those are conspicuously not on this list. And quite frankly, you know, we go in knowing that we have a certain amount of money and what needs to be spent on. To me, the priority is, you know, those stormwater fixes, the well. I do also think, you know, we can get that. I'm sorry, there's a lot of chatter. It's really distracting, but I do, you know, I do feel that we do have avenues, and we're getting information even to this day. And we have, you know, so for everyone to understand, on October 3rd, we do have a presentation coming up from our lobbyists on some of these options, because this conversation does continue. And, you know, I'm not insensitive to the problems of District 1 communities. You know, it's something that needs to be resolved, but we also can't run a city in the red, and we have to prioritize things in terms of, you know, risk assessment. I mean, if we lose that monitoring well, for example, you know, I'm not saying
The motion is to do that, is to,
well, the motion is to include all kinds of things as well.
well,
And so, you know, having that conversation, and then there's other things that we haven't really discussed as well. You know, if you want to free up some money, how come, you know, sorry, Jamie, not to pick on your pet project, but, you know, bistro lighting, that frees up 65,000. Is that
it's not funded.
funded?
It's not funded,
But it's on the list.
but it's not funded.
But we're not abandoning it, right? Because it's on the list.
I
It's
think,
something that, you know, to hear that from, especially from I won't even address that, but it's on the list, and as it was said before, we often put things on this list that can be aspirational, or we know that, we should be working harder to look at other options.
Madam Clerk, how far are we into this 10 minutes? 3 minutes left? Okay, thank you.
You have 6 minutes and 24 seconds.
Then I'm gonna have to stop you and just break up the time because everybody's got to get the chance. Ms. Malega?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, the fencing is not something that's extravagant. It's not chain link. It's something that, and by the way, this used to be almost $800,000. So thank you to Director Brown for finding a fence that was attainable. And how much money did we get out of ARPA funds? What was the total?
In total, 19 million.
So at 19 million, we're talking $500,000 to secure two cemeteries that we own, that we're responsible for, and secure them for not just the living, but also the deceased. I've got residents whose homes back up against Pinecrest, who have got people trying to jump her fence, who have cars, little motorcycle things racing through, who have prostitutes, by the way, in the middle of the night when I do drive through at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I have to call PVSO and have them send somebody in. So I am going to continue to fight for this. And this isn't about what the people do or don't want. It's the right thing to do.
I want to just make one more comment before I call Ms. Stokes. One of the things that we talk about in sort of reimagining the city and getting a different attitude about the city, which we've been working on for the past couple of years, is pride in our city, pride in our neighborhoods, pride in, and I think that starts from the top down. And I think that if we do this and spend the money, it shows a little bit of pride. Because we have, that's one opportunity that we have to just show it's time to start beefing up. We are very limited in funds, but it's time for us to not be like the second sister, to be a little more advanced. So that's why I'm in favor of it. And Ms. Stokes, it's your turn.
Okay, I just think it's a little misleading to imply that we are not investing in our infrastructure or anything like that. With this $19 million, we came, staff came to us with all of the necessary things of existing infrastructure that we have to maintain. Every new piece of equipment we put in the ground becomes something that we have to now put on a continuous improvement path. So we are going to continue to pay to maintain. We still haven't been able to figure out how to get all of our roads taken care of. We have playgrounds throughout the city that we have to constantly be replacing. We had ball fields that we had to maintain. We have a gym, we have a community center. We have a ton of things already that we can't even keep up with. And I think it's worth it to pause and look for all the solutions. We've had conversations about all of these things before. And it's honestly very frustrating for me that we come to a meeting like this where we've had multiple conversations and we're in some sort of agreement. We're trying to turn the ship last minute. So we did not say, Kim,
please, folks,
figure everything out in the next month. We had said we want one more actual workshop. And I've spent 4 hours with it. We haven't even talked about our budget and outside of capital improvements and my concerns there. I spent 4 hours with city staff and the director of finance and the human resource director and our attorney trying to figure out what happened last year. Where did that money go? Why can't we trace the source? Why haven't we gotten a good explanation? And no, I don't trust everything that's coming around because I've been dealt with this mess of a last minute budget amendment and with no real answers. So at this point, the only thing I'm prepared to do is to prove what we all agreed upon in the last 5 budget workshops, whether some people they don't think anybody got everything they wanted. And I would actually add a condition that we do a more complete audit this year, more than we have in the past. And I would expand the scope to include performance audits of each department, because we increased the budget of every single department with very little explanation as to why.
Why would we do another audit when the auditor hasn't even got an answer from 3 of you in regards to the last 2 audits he's done?
Please let me follow in, okay? I think we're out of time. There's a motion on the floor. I think we should vote on the motion. And I mean, we have now, this is our 3rd budget that we've been working on. I have had everyone has had the opportunity to meet with staff and get their questions answered. Nothing is perfect. There's things on the list that we would all love to have, but what the motion is to fund mostly very important water, sewer, life sorts of things. And one thing which is not quite life and death, but which I think would send a message to our citizens in general, whether it's whatever cemetery it is, that we have a little respect, because going down A Street by that cemetery, I'm sorry, it's very sad. And a fence would set it apart. So I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So where does that leave us?
I would like to make a motion to approve the budget as discussed in the last 5 budget workshops with the condition that we increase the scope of our audits and include a performance audit.
Which is not really relevant to this budget, has nothing to do with the budget.
Absolutely relevant
it's
to
just-
this budget. And
well,
we spent no time talking about the biggest.
It's a
concern.
different it's a different conversation. We're talking about numbers and allocations tonight. We're not talking about what has happened in the past and how, what this, and frankly, what steps the staff has already
Second
taken to commute that. Please don't interrupt me. So I'm objective that part of the motion that has nothing to do with money and numbers. I don't disagree. I'm not saying we shouldn't do other things that we need to look at, but I think that's not part of what we're talking about tonight. It's a little bit apples and oranges. So I would ask you just to, the last part, you can always do that, but I think in terms of this, this vote, it's pretty much numbers and allocations. Am I correct, Madam Attorney?
Normally, Madam Mayor, with the budget, it's just a motion to approve the budget either as
Right.
presented or as amended through a discussion. I don't know exactly what the performance audit would be. So
And it's not on
perhaps
the
that
agenda.
does involve a further discussion about what you're really specifically looking for in terms of, are you looking for sort of a data approach towards how each department's performance is doing? Some type of forensic audit? I think that needs to be explored more, because unless you can expound on what exactly you mean, but you know,
Can I amend that the city manager brings back options for how we can expand the scope of our audit within the next 30 days to this commission? I do not feel comfortable increasing the budget of every single department under the circumstances that I was forced to do so. And the only way I can vote in confidence on this budget, by approving the budget without having the time to go into each department and actually find out what happened and correct it, I have no choice but to approve it. So
So will you amend the motion?
I will be approving this budget, but I want to make sure we're going back in and find, which I said 3 months ago, and I have met and spent countless hours and have not been satisfied.
Which is a separate issue.
So I will amend my motion to approve the budget as presented to us tonight, of the last 5 workshops that we've had, with the condition that the city manager brings back options for ways we can increase the scope of.
Let's keep that as a separate issue. It's not contingent. on-
Excuse me,
To have options available to us.
Madam Mayor, if I may,
Please.
I had just covered just the CIP capital project. My next section was going to be the supplemental request from the community sustainability, and also talk about the options of adding 3 apprentices as well, before we make the motion on the whole budget as presented.
Okay, but this is just the CIP
This is
budget that we're
just
talking
for
about
the
right now.
CIP.
That's been
So-
broken.
Madam,
Yeah,
City Manager.
that's what I was gonna say, that the budget includes a number of components.
Right.
And we have not gone through all those components.
Can we break them down piece by piece and vote for different, as we go through them? Like, this is the CIP
Yes.
department,
Yes. And
Area.
we can capture other questions and talk about the other.
as we go through the old, that was,
So from my
Yeah.
understanding, the CIP remains as presented.
well, that's the motion for the second.
And Madam Mayor, if I'm also saying, I hear the concerns of Commissioner Stokes, and certainly respect it. I do also have questions specifically, if there's something specifically that of concern that we should be looking into closely, I would like that established so I know what options.
You need
to bring
guidance.
Forward.
Right. And there's no, right now, I mean, okay, so we're strictly talking about the CIP budget, that piece of it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the motion and the second, and Ms. Malik is not here. I'd like to have her back for a vote.
Well, I withdraw my motion if we're breaking our vote into 2 separate parts now. We're just
Well-
gonna approve the CIP and then go on to the rest of the budget, or no?
The way this, item was presented was the operating and the CIP all together,
Mhm.
basically.
But
So
So-
we've been through the operating budget many times. Madam,
Right, but what you can do is when you consider the budget as a whole,
Mhm.
you can also add into the motion that you want to approve the budget and maintain what has been recommended in the CIP that was submitted. Does that make sense?
Yes, or if
Right.
you have any changes.
Or if you have any changes, you vote
can
for
address it in the
changes
so
motion.
not vote now, not vote now. vote-
separately. Yeah, that's our preference.
So don't
Not-
vote separately.
Yes.
Okay, so can you withdraw your motion in your second?
Draw.
Okay, second?
okay, I just want a clarification. I thought I understood from the attorney that we and the finance director, we could vote on the CIP as one vote and the overall budget as a separate.
Yes, but
I
there
don't
was
know
a
if
vote
there's a-
for the budget that just
Right,
took place.
yeah.
It
That was the
wasn't just the
motion.
CIP.
Budget. Yeah, wasn't just a CIP.
So the general consensus is we'll vote, one vote on the whole shebang?
That's what they're asking. for.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay,
okay. All right, so the next item of the supplemental request, as discussed, as mentioned in the last workshop, we're going to come back with a supplemental request from the community sustainability for code enforcement. It's already included in this operating budget. It's,
I'm sorry, Yannick, you have to share, Monica, you have to share the screen.
sorry.
and perhaps speak up a little bit.
The mic is-
And tell me what page to look at.
So this will be page 1.
This little thing that you know. Oh.
So yes, so this is the supplemental request from Community Sustainability Code Enforcement. Is for the use and occupancy officer to assist with tackling enforcement activities for vacation/short-term rentals. The total impact on the general fund will be approximately $58,000, and on the building fund, it will be $25,000. This
Please, folks.
the fiscal impact of this supplemental request has already been added and incorporated into the budget.
Is there funding for it?
Yes, there's funding for it. There are fees for it.
So this is, is there anything else from the Community Sustainability Department?
No, that's it.
That's their only ask.
That's the only ask. And then the next ask was
And is that, how many positions is that?
it's only one position.
One position.
70% will go towards the general fund and the 30% with the building fund.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any, no discussion on that? Great.
The next item is for the 3 apprentices.
Mhm.
We were requested, oh, that's the handout, that's from the handout that you received. Yeah. So yeah, so we were asked to rerun the Stantec model with those with different scenarios is adding one apprentice and is a demand response for $50,000. And the scenario 2 was 2 apprentices and scenario 3 was the three additional apprentices on the budget. So as you can see, starting with a baseline, as from the previous Stantec model, we had projected a surplus of 1.24 million. And if you go to the next page with the first scenario, it's also on the screen.
Yannick, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
May I interrupt for a moment? I believe we were looking at a different way to fund those positions rather than the rates, but you wanted to go through.
Yes, so I just want to go over the different
Okay,
scenarios.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, yes. So the second scenario, the first scenario, we would have it would require a slight increase of the original increase that we had requested of 5%. So this one will be 5.5%. It will keep us, it will keep the surplus above the 1.2 as we had projected. And you can see also in scenario 2, which is the next page. In this case, if we add 2 apprentices, we'll further increase the rates to 5.8%. And for scenario 3, we will, with all 3 additional apprentices, and this would require to increase the rates to 6.15 instead of 5%.
What does that mean to someone paying the bill, like 3,000 kilowatt, 3,000 unit?
So I think for all 3 apprentices,
Let's start with 3, yeah.
it will be approximately about $1.
$1 a month.
91 cents to be exact from the Stantec.
It sounds like a no-brainer.
Yes, it's not that much of an impact.
Right.
But when we reviewed this further, me and the city manager, and we were of the opinion that maybe we should just add these apprentices on the budget and revisit this model as we were in January after the first quarter to see if there's really any need to
change,
increase the rate from 5% to whatever percentage we need to in order to meet our target. I don't think we're going to be way far off our target with that if we keep the rates as is with the increase of 5% as we all agreed on.
Okay, let me ask a question. When someone completes the apprenticeship program, is there a commitment to the city that they have to stay a certain amount of time? Because we've invested a lot of money in them? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
How long? Couple years?
I will defer
2 years.
to Mr. Liberty. So 2 years.
Okay. I see lights on. Do we have a motion?
No.
And we're gonna do the whole thing. At the
But
time.
there was that option and also an option of maybe instead of 3 apprentices, 2 apprentices and 1 customer service. So
Well, no, we pulled the customer
oh, you
service.
pulled the customer service.
off,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so I-
Not that we don't need the customer.
So let me clarify. So we've shared these scenarios to show how we can cover the increased expense for adding 1, 2, or 3 apprentices. And along with that, add in the demand response for the second phase of that study. There's also a scenario where we would not have any increases,
Yes.
correct? And so these positions could be taken out of the remaining funds of the department.
Fund balance.
Fund balance, or it's about $1.2 million. So we just want to throw a various
Options.
yes, my mind is moving faster than
It's been a long day.
my mind moving faster than my mouth. But various items, ways to do this. So we wanted to share that with you.
But if it's such a small impact on people's bill, I mean, it seems, if we're gonna do this, I think, personally, I think let's go for 3. Let's do the small raise, which really won't impact somebody's bill, $1. And build up that workforce that we should have. Mr. McCoy and Mr. Everybody's got their lights, no.
Maybe.
As I understand it, I had initially, I'm in favor of doing 3. That puts us at a total of 4. That gives you 2 pairs. That's probably the most sensible way to do it from the training aspect. And I agree, if you do it in terms of a slight rate increase, looking at the Stantec models, it's a 91 cent per month increase. It does get a little bigger in the second and third year. It goes up to $1 on the third year. But it's a pretty minimal, and the benefit is pretty major in terms of reliability and training of people. What the finance director proposed was, as we were looking with Stantec at this, they said, look, we have a bit of surplus, even without messing with the rate. What if we funded out of that? And I think, and I want the finance director to correct me if I'm looking at the wrong thing, but I think the way to evaluate whether that makes sense as a way to go is primarily to look at the impact, if we did it that way, on our reserves. And one way to measure that is the combined system reserve in days.
Yes.
And I think what you want to compare is the baseline scenario, which is the first page, and scenario 3 labeled no increase, which I think is the last page.
Yes.
And then look at the red row. And so in 24, fiscal year 24, if we did it with using the reserves, our reserve would go from 121 days down by 3 days to 118, a pretty negligible decrease. As you go out, it would go from 150 to 145, so 5 days. If you go to 175, goes to 7 days. But as you get out there, you get to the same reserve about the same time. So I'm agnostic as to whether it's better to do it without making a rate increase, but doing it out of the reserve. I'm comfortable that it doesn't make a major dent in our reserve, so I think that's safe to do it that way.
Yes.
I
and-
defer to others as to which is the better way to go.
And we'll
Thank
still,
you.
we'll still have an option to come back in January with the model, with an update or
With the
of our
slight- to
see
numbers,
where we're
yes,
at.
to see if we
Right.
really need to increase the base rate.
So if we did it without an increase, we could always come back in January and say, hey, we need the increase.
And it could be you raise by a quarter
Right.
and then moved you up a couple days on reaching your.
Mr. Diaz.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm hoping it isn't negligible, but 3 days it can be a lot depending on the situation. So hopefully we can make that up in other ways, but I'm certainly ready to commit to full all the positions that are asked for. And I do want to kind of throw out there, when we do revisit this, I like that concept of revisiting the payment aspect of it. Another thing I kind of want to throw in there, if it's possible, if the stars align and it goes the other way, and we do have an opportunity, like when we revisit, could we save some of that money, that 91 cents or whatever it is, to set it aside for future funding of these apprentice positions?
Sure.
Commissioner Stokes.
I agree. I'm in favor of funding all three positions so that we can have two full teams, and the instructor is instructing regardless of if he's teaching 1 or 4. So I think that makes sense mathematically. I agree with revisiting the rates. I know we get nervous when we're talking about how much we have in our reserves, but we've also mentioned the idea of adding like $1 or something a month for a storm reserve. So we might, when we revisit this, we'll have more information. Do we want to like increase our base rate to help build a bigger reserve that likely will make us feel better about storms? Or do we want to keep our base rate the same and then add in an extra small increase dedicated to a storm fund? So I know we've talked about that too. So I agree. I think it makes sense to revisit that whenever we're ready, like hopefully by January. But I think we want to start having conversations about what that storm reserve might look like. I feel like everybody up here has been in favor with that generally.
Ms. Malega.
Madam Mayor, while I am in favor of the apprenticeship program and had long conversations with Director Liberty and the city manager and their staff in the room who have had conversations with them, they know that I support it. I'm in favor of this. Thank you to finding the funding for this. But unfortunately, I'll be voting against this budget today because of the things that happened earlier and lumping CIP in with this. This has nothing to do with my feelings towards apprenticeship, my feelings towards staff, or towards the directors. This is just me having to do what's right for my community. And unfortunately, I will be voting against this budget today, but it's not without me saying thank you for all your hard work. And yes, I am in favor of the apprenticeship program.
Okay,
Do we?
Mr. Diaz, did you speak? Are you done?
I just had like a quick little addition because it was brought up like a resilience and perhaps a little bit uniquely. I kind of look at that. This is, it's phenomenal because it's education. It's bringing in local guys or men and women to do this work. And in terms of resilience, we mobilize teams from all over the country to come and help us, and that's always super appreciative. But when you have local and trained line people, they know the system better than anyone. And in terms of emergency and response, they're going to be faster. They're going to be the most quality program. So that's why, I brought it up. If we can, in the future, hopefully set some pennies aside to make sure that this program is robust and we don't go through the situation that we did last year, where we're, busting out the CPR to keep the program going. I don't want to get to that point ever again. I want it to be strong and robust and continue and, build that team because they know the system better than anybody.
And it's complicated stuff. I'm in a bit of a quandary because, and I hear what Ms. Malega is saying, if we're going to vote on an entire budget, which includes things, I want to vote for this. I want to vote for a lot of pieces of it, but I also have a problem with the CIP issues. So is there a way that we could separate them? Because I don't want to stall the budget. We can't stall the budget. We have a time frame. We've got to get a budget going. So, and we're a bit of a quandary. It's a bit of a quandary we find ourselves in. So I'm wondering, and I'm looking to you and you guys about, how can we fix this problem? We have things that we want to vote for. There are pieces of this budget that we want to vote for. There are pieces of this budget, given what's been said tonight, that we know will fail, and we'll have to revisit them. But I think that would be a tragedy to stop the process. How many workshops can we have? Because the last day for us to submit our budget is October 1st?
No, actually,
We have to vote
we
today.
have to do it today.
We have to have a second hearing on the 28th.
Right, so what we're faced with right.
The budget can pass 4-3. It doesn't have to be 5-0 vote. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I'm not afraid to go on the record and say that I'm not in favor of 100% of this budget. Therefore, I cannot vote in favor of it. I'm either all in or I'm not all in. And so I would just like to, that's why I wanted to say my thank you to staff and to the directors. And yes, there are parts that I'm in favor of, but I will be voting no, and I'm okay with that being on the record.
Thank you. Peter Vigiani, is he still here? Hi. You want to say what you said? You want me to read it? Okay. North Ocean Breeze. I've been practicing actually during the night. What does that say? Okay. I am speaking to the commission today for them to approve more apprentices. It takes a special kind of crazy, well, you're in Lake Worth Beach. A special kind of crazy to want to do this kind of work. Long hours, call bad weather, et cetera, right? Oh, callback, weather, et cetera. If you are doing it for a paycheck, you have more, you ain't gonna make it. Okay, thank you. It's good to have an interpreter with me. Yeah, we in Jersey, ain't gonna make it. Okay. You currently have instructors with 40 years plus experience. Please take advantage while they are still here. You might not have the opportunity again when they are gone. I hope there's no
Retired.
plan for that.
Retired.
Oh. I get older, I get a little nervous.
Just a quick question. I think we talked earlier. I hear the discomfort of voting for some things. And I still want to be clear. Do we have the option to have a vote on the CIP and an option to vote on the budget, the operating budget? Or is there a disadvantage to doing two votes? And I'm seeing it, I think I'm seeing there's a disadvantage. Vote for one for the whole enchilada.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
The preference is normally that you have one vote on the overall budget. Now, there have been years in the past before our previous finance director where we didn't pass the CIP until after the fiscal year, that portion of the budget. I believe it was funded, but they didn't actually vote on the CIP. That wasn't a process that I recommended. I believe it should all be encompassed into the budget approved before the end of your fiscal year. So that's my legal recommendation, to do it as one. Now, can you break it down and make votes and then at the end make the votes consistent with the prior votes? Sure, you can do that, but there really should just be one vote on your overall budget.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm really in a position that I feel like today. It's terrible because I feel very strongly about the CIP projects, but I also feel very strongly that we do need to keep this budget going. And I know it could be 3, 2, 4, 1, whatever. I'm deeply troubled by this, and I'm sorry. Mr. Diaz?
I think it's important to note as well that we can pass a budget on the things that we agree on to keep things going, but it's not abandoning, the ARPA funds, CIP, and certain CIP things, because we can, especially with ARPA funds, discuss that, as we get more updates and whatnot, especially after October 3rd or whatever. It's not ideal, like our city attorney says, but it's doable to keep it going. And, it needs to happen. I'm looking forward to future conversations, and this kind of really reminds me of something that Yannick and I just talked about before the start of the meeting. Is honestly running the budget session from summer to October it's a little stressful, it's a little short. It doesn't really
Part of
have
the
to be
job.
that way.
Well-
We have to get a budget by a certain time, but we can also kind of spread the butter, if you will. And this is kind of like the situation that it's just reminding me why that's important. And if we have to spread it a little bit beyond for certain things to bring back that discussion, it's unfortunate, but I think it's still doable. And it's not abandoning certain things.
Was there anything else? So you
No.
brought
We're at
for
the
the
end.
3 apprentices and the demand response. And
And that's.
is there anything else for the budget that, nothing else?
And,
And the
And the-
position for community
community
sustainability.
sustainability. Right.
But those supplemental budget requests we'd already gone
Yeah,
over
so
in
it's
previous
already in the budget.
workshops.
Sorry.
That was already, yeah, these are the new additions.
These are the new additions, the 3 apprentices and also
Demand response.
the demand response and also the position for the community sustainability. That's
Okay,
what it is.
one more question.
Yes.
Because I feel as strongly, I feel as strongly, if not stronger, about the apprenticeship program, so I don't want to vote against the apprenticeship program. Which leaves me with the unfortunate choice I'm forced into, but now here's my question. If we vote the way the motion has been made, can we not come back and revisit the allocations of the ARPA funds I'm very distressed that we're saying to the water utilities person, yeah, later. Okay, I think that's disrespectful of the position, but here I am. So are those things, even if we vote as we vote tonight, if it passes tonight, can we come back and revisit ARPA, the water treatment? I'm asking him. The water treatment, the cemetery fences, things like that, we can come back.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
door is not closed.
It's not closed.
But if we
You
turn,
could-
if for some reason the budget tonight did not pass, the apprenticeship program would go, everything else would go. I mean, essentially, that's how that works.
No budget.
No budget.
We would all go.
The state would
Oh, don't sugarcoat it.
Say it like it is.
So, I mean, and given that scenario, with the absolute commitment to go back on these ARPA funds, I'm shocked that I'll don't want to beat a dead horse.
But not 4 months from now, not 6 months from now. That's
Right.
what happens in this
Right.
city, is we
Right.
talk about stuff and then you know what? Again, it's been 2.5 years. So I'm
I'm
frustrated.
I don't know why we need more time. We've had plenty of time, but here we are. And it is, I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We were elected to make decisions and to do what we need to do before we knew tonight was a deadline to make a decision. Why coming back now and saying I need more and I'm kind of mad at the staff is not really helpful. So I'm going to vote for it because there's so many things that are important for this. And with the assurances that we can come back and deal with the water and deal with the fences and deal with everything right now. I mean, I haven't even brought up the golf course. I mean, there's certain things about the golf course that we need to talk about, safety things about the golf course. But I figured I wouldn't bring it up tonight because there's just so much going on. But I will vote for it because I feel very strongly about the apprentice program, about just keeping the city going, and in fact, having a budget. So with that, I will,
I think we need to re-motion.
so can somebody make a motion? Where are we at?
Motion to approve the budget as presented with the addition of the 3 additional apprentices in the demand response program.
And thank you, and the community,
Those were always part of the budget.
No,
Not this
that
one.
has to be
This
added.
was the last one. We
Shut
had,
up.
there was one remaining that we needed to approve this today.
Oh,
Yes. The one
That's
that I
why we brought
presented
it to.
okay.
on page 1.
And then the additional building.
Code enforcement officer.
officer.
Coming out of 2 funds.
Yes.
Okay,
Do we
Right.
need to add in the revisiting in January?
no,
That's separate.
that's automatic.
Yeah.
No.
We can always do
I
that.
think we discussed it in the during the workshops, and that's what we plan on doing, coming back to you with a budget to actual to see where we stand and
Yeah.
with a better look at how we perform in fiscal year 23. So yes.
Okay, so with that, do we have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any against?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. I would not vote for it if I did not have that assurance about going back, because I'm very disturbed by this situation. Okay. I don't know how much more time we need. We have to get stuff done. So with that, is that the end of the meeting?
No.
It's just getting started.
I always want to go home. Silly me.
All right,
Where are we at now?
so the next
business.
new
New
business,
New business one is fiscal year 2024 contribution from enterprise operations. Can we take a 5-minute break? Go upstairs.
This is a resolution.
stormwater is the next one, next item.
Oh, I'm on B. Now I'm rushing ahead.
And yes, a 5-minute break. Fine. with me.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
Do you remember that? What's his name before I approved the CIP after October 1? Do you remember that year?
You forgot about the rollback grades.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
You have other things you're thinking about, aren't you? The script. Right. Do you remember that year that Bruce did the CIP after?
Yes, I remember that.
And I was like, what the?
What? Here?
Madam Mayor, it's 8:05. I'm sorry, I don't hear you.
You know?
Yes, I hear you now. It's
No.
8:05 or now 8:06.
And we're live. There went my rhyme. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. We are up on new business A, which is resolution 40-2023, establish the stormwater annual assessment for fiscal year 23-24. I believe there's no change. Mr. McBoy?
I was going to make a motion to approve, but I
Okay.
would like to say that I would like to be on record that given climate change, given increasing irrigation, that next year we should definitely be looking forward to perhaps a slight increase on that.
So we have,
Make sure that addressing the increase in flooding that we see.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I have a public comment.
Oh. Ooh. Thank you.
Adrian Copland, North Palm Way. I thought Lake Worth Beach was a sanctuary city, but it is certainly is not when it comes to welcoming businesses with open arms. Businesses that would only increase our much needed tax revenues, businesses that would only therefore benefit us, your tax-paying constituency, and help our beloved Lake Worth Beach to prosper. Instead, the majority of you, through your obstinate and obsessive politically based defiance, have hurt us, as this non-ad valorem tax increase demonstrates. You chose to fight Benny's on the beach, Airbnbs, other small businesses, and most significantly, the Gulfstream Hotel project for many years. If we, your tax-paying constituency, had not been subjected to your total lack of business acumen and your politically prioritized promotion of your own personal biases and agendas, there'd be no need now to ask us to pay for your ineptitude. We say no to any ad valorem tax increases. That's the only comment I have.
Thank you.
That's only for that item.
Okay. So next one up is B, which is fiscal year contribution from enterprise operations. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Next up, fiscal year 2024 administrative charge for services. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I have a public comment. This is E. Okay, we're coming up there. E, okay. Resolution 41-2023 fees and charges for city services in fiscal year 2024.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
E, we're an E now? I lost track.
Yes.
Fiscal year 2024 position count provides a compilation of all authorized full-time and part-time positions. It is the blueprint for allocation of staff resources. Is the fiscal year 2024 position count. We have a public comment. Let's have a motion. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Question, do we need to amend the motion to reflect what we did with the budget earlier?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
That'll be
Okay.
okay.
So do I have a second?
Wait, we need to.
So it will be a motion to add, to include the
Include the-
positions that were.
Do you amend your motion?
Yes,
The community sustainability and
and the
the
apprentices.
Right.
Motion to approve,
Is-
so with the amendment of the addition of the 4 new positions.
Yes.
Second.
On, sure.
Peggy Fisher, 8th Street, Lake Worth Beach. It is amazing to me that on the position count, you have a finance department with 2 positions, I believe. And yet we have other support positions in the city with 4. Sorry, city clerk, you're one of them, or more. And I don't think it's appropriate to put the whole finance of the city on 2 individuals. They needed another accountant in their position, and not one of you spoke up and said how important it was, given how much information they provide, how much you talk about going to them. That should be, if not added to it, it should at least be something that is one of those, well, we can look at it after October 1st and we can revisit and we can this. It should be a priority. You should have more than 2 people that you put the burden of the whole almost 200 million budget on. And as far as I know, that's your finance department. Am I incorrect?
I believe so, yeah.
We actually have more people than.
There's a lot one too.
Yes,
But weren't you asking for another accountant?
we have 1 vacancy and that there was one that we decided not.
Not to fill.
Right.
You need to make sure your finance department, if you're going to make all these demands about checking the finance and the finances of each department, then you need to provide enough staff to do all that extra work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do a motion. And a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And moving right along to the last, I believe, don't tease me, the last item, which is the cost of living base salary adjustment for the city manager. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I believe that.
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Second.